you. So, hi, I'm Emily. I'm the Performance Marketing Director at Green Ginger Digital, and we're based in Hull's Old Town, not far from 43. So I've been working in digital now for around 10 years, and I started my career at what was one of the UK's biggest digital marketing agencies, and that was working with clients like Jules, Argos, M&Co, and Jaguar Land Rover. And what that did was expose me to some big brands, and what we've done with Green Ginger is kind of distilled that knowledge down, and we're offering it to SMEs, small local businesses, and anybody who wants to start their digital journey. So why is audience important? Well, we know that the brands who are winning at the moment are the ones that are utilising their first-party data. So if we take our own clients, for example, we've seen the best performance growth in the ones that we've used audience data with, and they're trending at around a 32% uplift once that's applied. And that's ultimately because we know who we're selling to. So we know the pain points that they want answering, we know the language that really resonates with them, and ultimately what makes them tick. And we also know it's a really changing landscape at the moment. So post-COVID, there's a lot more people who are now online, but there's also a lot more competition. So we need to be doing everything we were doing before, but better. And we also know brands aren't loyal. So they are looking for the best experience. They want to make sure that they are getting the best price. And those who aren't offering that are going to slowly start to see decreases. So my next example coming up is somebody who's really misread their audience. So the customer is in front of them, but they're just not seeing what's there. And we see this time and time again with brands who are online. Next slide, please. I think I need to sack my assistant. There we go. And again. So basically, I'm going to summarise it because the sound's off. Somebody goes to see a Spider-Man movie, he's dressed as Spider-Man, but the guy doesn't know what film he wants to see. So, if you were a brand, you're doing exactly that online, you're definitely not hitting it right with your audience. So we know it's really easy for brands to get it wrong, and I'm sure if you're all on social media that time and time again you'll have been served with the wrong ad. So this one, for example, I was served with, and I'm not quite sure, but I definitely don't think I'm the target demographic for this one. So there's a few things that can go wrong when you go for reach over the right audience. So a lot of agencies and a lot of brands will just target everybody and anybody. But actually what you're doing when you do that is you're potentially weakening your brand, you're wasting your ad spend, and you're giving a really poor experience to not only the people you want to target, but those who probably aren't the right people anyway. And what that does is have a real knock-on effect on your leads, on your conversion rates, and ultimately how you're getting that ad spend to work harder for you. And here's an example of where someone's got it right. So I am a dog owner. She's over there if anyone's noticed. And I'm always in market to buy some dog products. And anybody on Google, Facebook will know that based on my interests. So I was targeted by Hounds of Eden with this product, and of course I bought it. So definitely would recommend this product. It was a good experience from the start to the end. Not only were they targeting me right, but actually when I got to the site, it was a really seamless process and their customer service was excellent. So I'd be a prime target to actually retarget because I'll probably buy a lot more from them. So in essence, when you get it right, you can improve your traffic. You can make sure that you're getting your brand in front of the right people, which has a great knock-on effect on your sales, your leads, and also make sure that you get that growth for your brand because people follow you on social and they're also making sure that they're telling friends and family. And just to kind of reiterate how important that is, you could get that 32% growth that we've seen when people have done it right. So we know the difference between good and bad targeting, and how now do we make sure that we do it right? So every marketing talk needs a terrible marketing analogy. So we're going to talk to you about audience like it's a cheesecake. It's nice and simple. So to do your audience approach right, you need to think about it like a layered cheesecake. So you've got your buying personas, which is your biscuit base. This is quite an old-fashioned way of understanding your audience and comes from kind of 20 years ago when we maybe didn't have the information we have now. So you're looking at things like the census to get a bit of a look and feel of who you're talking to. But it's not great, but it's a starting point. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got third-party data, which is information that you'll get from the likes of Google, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now TikTok. But I think the crucial thing to remember here is it's not your data. So it's good, it gives you a point in the right direction, but there's nothing as good as first-party data, which is what your customers have done once they've reached your site, bought your product, and engaged with your brand. So we're going to start with buying personas, the one we don't particularly like. So we've got an example here. It's Marketing Mary. So every buying persona has some terrible alliteration along the way, which is point one. We know she's in her mid-30s, she's from Hull, she's got 2 kids, she earns 35 grand and she's been to uni. Well, that's great, but how do I talk to her? I don't know anything, really. What are her challenges? What does she struggle with? How frequently does she shop? Has she got disposable income? Is she even interested in what I'm trying to sell her? At the moment, I haven't got a clue. So with that in mind, I've got a really good example of when relying on a buying persona just doesn't hit the mark. So previously, we've worked with a brand, Durex, which I'm sure everybody knows, and we were supporting them launch online and with their D2C proposition. So effectively, they had a lot of data, but ultimately it was all from offline, and it was assumed, which a lot of buying personas are. So they assumed that their target demographic was a young guy, 18 to 24, and a student. So everything from the copy to the website to the marketing collateral was talking to Horny Harry. But when they launched the site, they got the third-party data pumping through. They soon found out, actually, it was completely wrong. It was actually Horny Harriet that they should have been talking to. And she had very different pain points. So she was middle-aged, she was a mother, she was looking for that convenience and that ease, and she didn't have time to be going to the chemist. So with that in mind, we pivoted everything on that website. We changed the colour, the copy, the information architecture, even down to where the buttons were placed, and made sure we were talking to the right demographic. Well, the core demographic, because you're going to still get a lot of different audiences, but you need to be talking to the majority. And once we did that, we saw our conversion rate almost double, because we were answering what she needed to be answered. So to go into third-party data in a bit more detail, so it's important to remember this is not your data. So although it's good, and Google's got a ton of information on you, and it's been tracking you since the day you started interacting with it, it's not your data. So it gives you a flavour, it lets you understand interests, affinities, and some of the crossover we will get from a buying persona, but actually it doesn't really give us much detail about our customers. And it's important to remember that actually that data will evolve over time. So your first month of data, having launched a website, will be very different to 3 years later. And here's some examples of the platforms that you can get that third-party data from. So every website should have Google Analytics set up from the day it launches, because the most important thing you have is the data on the people reaching your website. And that's the same when you're using Facebook as a marketing tool, Twitter, TikTok. So you can see here we've got examples from Google Analytics and Facebook, and we know for this client actually the target or the core demographic that they're getting traffic from is female 45 to 54. And we know a little bit more about her interests. So she's a green living enthusiast. So how do we use that? Well, if that's important to her, let's include that in the marketing. Let's tell her how our brand is sustainable, how our packaging is used, how we're thinking about the environment, and I'm sure that's going to resonate with her. We also know she's a TV lover. So actually, could we use influencers that she's going to really like? For example, we've got one client that we're just using Colleen Nolan with. It won't work for everybody, but daytime television lovers, it's going down a treat. We also know she loves to go on holiday, so that will help inform what products we're showing her. Holiday shop, swimwear is going to resonate better than, I don't know, a ski jacket, for example. And if anyone in the room's got a phone, which I'm sure you all have, you can actually check what Google assumes your interests are today. So the URL there, if you go on that, you'll be able to understand what Google's thinking you're interested in. And it doesn't always get it right. So this is what it assumes I'm interested in. 90% of it's right, but I'm definitely not an American football fan. And I'm not interested in Android apps because I've got an iPhone. So you can see here it's not 100% accurate and should be taken with a bit of a pinch of salt sometimes. So you know about third party, you know about buying personas, and now we're going to talk through the most crucial piece of data, which is your first party data. And this should be being tracked from the moment that you launch your website. So we categorize it in 3 different streams. So first of all, we've got customer database. So it's very easy to get this set up with tools like Emetria or Klaviyo, and effectively it starts to build up an idea of who your customer is. It's things like how frequently they've bought from you already, how often they purchase, do they buy during promotion or non-promotion, and actually have they lapsed? Do we need to do a little bit more to get them to purchase again? And then secondly, we've got social listening. So this is quite a simple way of understanding how your brand's being received, and anybody can do it by looking on Facebook and Instagram, and especially now TikTok, to understand what people like about a product, what they don't, what are they sharing, what are they commenting. And we can also do this for competitors, so look at what's happening for them. Is something going right? What can we do to emulate that? Is it going wrong? Do we want to make sure that we don't copy that at all? One of the key TikTok trends at the moment is the hashtag TikTok made me do it. So if your brand's big enough to be getting some coverage on that, have a look what people are liking about the products. And then thirdly, we've got review mining. Again, another source of information that anybody can access. So sites like Amazon, FIFO, Trustpilot have a wealth of information that's being fed back to you on user experience and generally how things have been received by your product or service. By looking at how people's opinions have trended on there, you can really start to get a flavour of what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. And all of this information can be fed back into the copy on your website, but also within your ads, because it's important to make people know that you're aware of why they're using your product without being too obvious. And here's just a few examples of those platforms. So they're not all free, but they are generally quite affordable, and it's really important to have a look what could work for you. So now we know examples of good and bad and how that trends. We've got a clearly segmented database, and we've harvested all our third-party data. Well, what do we do? Well, we've got it. So a lot of people go to the effort of looking at their data, and then they stall. They don't put it into any action. But the possibilities are endless when we do it properly, and we think strategically. So one example being with your paid search, how can you use that audience data to optimise your bids? So one example would be, you know that you've got a group of people, they always purchase from you, regardless of what you market them. Why would you use your budget to get them back to site? Let them do it on their own. And negative bid adjustment them out, so you're not wasting your budget on people that are already doing what you'd like. Segment your emails. You've got groups of people that you know do different things, so talk to them differently. Give them different offers depending on what they're doing when they get to the site, and use different language, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. And once you've given them that information, land them on different pages and start to really test what is important to them. Change it up, try different things, and of course make sure you're tracking it all. Retarget, so you know that people are doing actions when they get to your site. Potentially they're getting to the basket and they're dropping out. Well, how do we get them back there? You've got a group already created through your third-party tracking or your first-party tracking. Let's drive them back to the site. Let's use our ad copy to make sure we're answering any problems they might have. And share feedback. So all of that review mining is crucial to feedback to the wider team. Let them know what they're hitting, what they're getting right, what they may be missing, and what could they do better. And that's it. So if you do all of that, you're going to grow your audience 32%. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can catch me after the next talk. Thank you.